welcome back. I'm Di, and today I'm bringing you my February wrap-up. In February, I read 6 things, 2 novels, and 4 volumes of manga. If you watched my January wrap-up, you may have heard me say that I thought I was coming out of my reading slump, and I did. However, not wanting to read books turned into wanting to read all the books, so I did start several books in February, but I only managed to finish the 6 things that I mentioned. So let's just get into it. The first book I finished in February was Second Street Station. This is the first book in the Mary Handley mystery series by Lawrence H. Levy. This is historical fiction, and it follows Mary Handley, who has become the first lady detective at Second Street Station in 19th century Brooklyn. In this book, Mary is investigating the death of her friend's fiancé. I did have problems with this book. Mary, as a character, was very enjoyable to read. I liked how she handled situations that she got herself into. I liked how she handled the workplace bullying she was subjected to, being the only woman detective at the station. The things that bother me have to do with a storyline that I don't feel was necessary to this story. In some of the flashbacks, you get introduced to one of Mary's friends as she was growing up, who happens to be the daughter of Chinese immigrant workers. This friend got bullied in school for being Chinese. Some of the things that were said disgusted me. In a later part of the book, a derogatory name for a Chinese person is spoken. I feel like the storyline regarding the Chinese characters was not necessary. That family's inclusion in this story was basically a plot device to explain how Mary learned jujitsu. Now, keep in mind, jujitsu is a Japanese martial art, and we're talking about Chinese immigrant workers, and yes, they may have learned it in China. However, I'm not sure if that even crossed the author's mind because the author is white. But brushing that aside, what bothered me were the things that were written about these Chinese people. It made me question how the author came up with such phrases. Hateful phrases. Did he hear it from someone else in his life? Is it something that he made up on his own? Is it really how he feels towards Chinese people? Things like that crossed my mind, and it was hard not to think about that. I had to step away from this book a couple of times after I read passages like that because it got on my nerves. I was infuriated. So I did take the time to set this down, collect myself, cool myself down, distract myself with something else before I revisited the story to finish it out. Now, I did have to read this book because I got the second book in the series for review, and I don't like to read series out of order, so that's why I had to. I really wanted to finish this one, but like I said, it disturbed me. I had issues with it. It took me a really long time to read it, and though I will be continuing to the next one because I did get it for review, this one kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Now, like I said, I did really enjoy Mary's character. Uncovering the mystery was very interesting. There are historical characters in here such as Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, J.P. Morgan. We go across the time where Coca-Cola is invented. That being said, there is mention of cocaine usage and lots of alcohol consumption. And I think that just has to do with the time period we are talking about. But yeah, this one was my lowest rated book of the month. I ended up giving it 3 stars. And I'm hoping that the things that bothered me in this book don't continue to the next book. But those phrases that I read and the experience I had are going to stay with me. To this day, it's been about a month. Yeah, I think it's been about a month since I finished this book, and I still think about those phrases, and my anger starts to peak again. But anyway, let's just get on to the next novel that I read. I read P.S. I Love You. This is by Cecilia Ahern. I buddy read this with my friend Janie over at Bookworm Buddy. I will link her channel down in the description below. As you can see, I have a movie cover. I actually watched this movie before I knew it was a book. I really enjoyed the movie. What made me watch it? Gerard Butler. I am a big fan of watching Gerard Butler's movies. And I'm not usually one to pick up like romantic or sad movies or stories, but this one interested me, and like I said, Gerard Butler. After watching the movie, I really wanted to read the book, and so that was several years ago that I watched this movie, and I picked up the book shortly after, and it's been sitting on my shelf collecting dust. So I finally was able to get it out. Janie and I had a great time reading this book. This book follows Holly in the aftermath of losing her husband Jerry to cancer. Jerry and Holly have a really great relationship, and as Jerry knows that he is going to die, he leaves Holly with one final gift, and that is a box of letters, and there is one letter for every month, encompassing a year after he has passed, and in each letter he leaves Holly a mission to kind of help her learn to live life without him. Like I said, I did watch the movie, so I kind of knew where this story was going, but this book was very different, as movie adaptations usually are. I really, really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 5 stars. This is my first book by Cecilia Ahern. I do have 2 others, which are Thanks for the Memories and Love Rosie, which I have also seen that movie, Love Rosie. Really enjoyed it. But I really loved Cecilia Ahern's writing style. It was so realistic. The characters felt more like friends than characters, and when they hurt, I hurt, and some of the situations that they were going through were very real. I don't know what other word to use for it, but it was like I was going through those situations with them. We do get flashbacks of Jerry, so it kind of brings this story full circle, because we do get to know Jerry while he was alive. We do get to understand what his thought process was in putting together these missions, and why he decided on these specific things to have Holly do. Again, there were things that were very different in this book than in the movie, and I think the book was much better. Most of the time they are. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and I look forward to reading more of Cecilia Ahern's work, so 5 stars. The last 4 things I read were volumes of manga. I read volumes 36 and 37 of Fairy Tale by Hiro Mashima. You know I've been reading this for a while, In the manga, I am still in the Wizard Games. It looks like it's starting to wrap up. And so this arc is coming to an end, and I'm really excited to see how it's going to turn out. At the end of volume 37, something surprising happens, and so I'm really looking forward to getting into volume 38. I gave both of these volumes 4 stars, as I've given all of the other volumes in this series so far. The last 2 volumes of manga I read were from Full Metal Alchemist. I read volumes 1 and 2. This is by Hiromu Arakawa. I watched the Full Metal Alchemist anime maybe a decade ago. But I haven't watched Brotherhood, which I hear is closer to what is in the manga. It has been a while since I watched the anime, so things aren't as fresh in my mind as to how the story goes. I also didn't watch the entire series. This series follows 2 brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, and they are alchemists. They can do things with alchemy. I don't know how to explain it. It's slightly magical, slightly scientific, I guess. But they, I think, are in their younger teens. When they were very young, they lost their mother, and they studied alchemy to try to bring her back from the dead. A theme in this story is equivalent exchange. And so, in trying to bring back their mother, they lost things. Edward lost a limb and Alphonse lost his body. And so if you've seen a cover of this anime, or you may be able to see it right here, Alphonse is actually a suit of armor. But several years go by and Edward and Alphonse practice alchemy. Edward actually becomes really good at it and becomes a state alchemist and is able to perform alchemy without having to draw the circle. And it's something that alchemists usually have to do in this story, is draw some kind of circle in order to pull their power. But Edward's able to do alchemy without having to draw the circle. So this makes him rather powerful and kind of a prodigy. Edward and Alphonse have decided that the reason that they weren't able to bring back their mother was because they needed a Philosopher's Stone. You're probably most familiar with the Philosopher's Stone because of the first Harry Potter book. But anyway, they are on the lookout for that, and at the beginning of this series, in Volume 1, they have a lead as to where this Philosopher's Stone might be. I really enjoyed these 2 volumes. Edward is rather comical. He is rather short, and when people comment about his height or have something to say about Alphonse being Edward, because Edward's rather well known, being that he's so young and a state alchemist. Lots of people know about the Full Metal Alchemist, and Alphonse constantly gets mistaken as Edward, and that bothers Edward. But the worst thing you could say to Edward is that he is short. Anything that has to do with his height, he gets so upset. But those scenes are just so comical because he just flies off the handle, and Alphonse is like, no, calm yourself down, you're gonna get in trouble. Alphonse is the younger of the 2 brothers, by the way. But anyway, I really enjoyed these 2. The comical moments were really something I needed, especially after reading Second Street Station and having feelings like I discussed with you already. I really needed that comic relief. So I ended up giving both of these volumes 4 stars. I am going to be continuing I did purchase the anime series, and I will be watching that later as well. But that wraps up my reading for February. Now, as I mentioned, in February I did start several books, and I didn't finish very many of them, so I have a feeling that March's wrap-up is going to be rather lengthy. That, and I am participating in March Mystery Madness. I am a host of March Mystery Madness. If you plan on reading any mystery, a mystery, one mystery, two mysteries, the Book One Cozies Club pick, please join us in talking about those in our Goodreads group, which is Mystery Madness. I will link the group and our Twitter page below so that you can interact with us. But yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to have several finished books in March. So let me know what you read in the month of February, or if you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video. I hope you're all doing great, and until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.